What if I told you the most powerful fat-burning workout of your day doesn't happen in the gym, and it doesn't even happen while you're awake? It happens in the quiet hours after dinner, when the lights dim, the house gets still, and your body is supposed to shift into its overnight repair mode. But here's the twist most people never hear. That shift isn't automatic anymore. In fact, for a lot of people, the hours after dinner have become the exact reason their belly fat won't move, no matter how clean they eat, how hard they train, or how strict they fast the next day. Because you don't lose fat the moment you stop eating. You lose fat when your hormones finally give your body permission to access what it already stored. And the biggest permission slip your body needs is one word you've heard 1,000 times, but probably never in this context: insulin. Not because insulin is bad, but because insulin is powerful. Insulin is the gatekeeper. If it's still elevated when you go to sleep, your body doesn't burn stored fat overnight. It stores, it protects, it preserves. And it does that most aggressively around your liver and your waist. That's why two people can eat the same dinner and wake up completely different. One wakes up lighter, clearer, calmer, and yes, slowly leaner over time. The other wakes up puffy, hungry, groggy, and stuck in the same cycle again. Not because one has more willpower, but because one unknowingly sets up the right biochemical environment after dinner, and the other unknowingly destroys it. And here's what makes this so frustrating. Most people are trying to fix belly fat in the wrong time window. They attack the morning. They skip breakfast. They pound coffee. They do cardio. They white-knuckle their way through hunger. But by the time they wake up, last night has already decided what kind of metabolism they're waking into. The truth is, the night before is either training your body to burn fat or training it to cling to fat. So let's open the hood and look at what's actually happening after dinner, because once you see it, you'll never look at relaxing after a meal the same way again. Every time you eat, your blood sugar rises. That rise triggers insulin. Insulin's job is to take incoming fuel and move it into cells. That's normal. That's healthy. But insulin has a second job that matters more for belly fat than most people realize. It shuts off fat burning, not slows it down, shuts it off. Because from your body's perspective, why would it burn stored fuel when fresh fuel is arriving? Now picture what happens when dinner ends. Your body is supposed to do a handoff. First, it processes the incoming meal, then insulin falls, then your body shifts into a different state entirely. A night state, a repair state, a deep cleaning state, a state where you're no longer running on what you just ate, but on what you stored. And that's where belly fat finally becomes useful, because during sleep, your brain still needs energy, your organs still need support, and your body still needs fuel to repair. When insulin is low, your liver opens the pantry of stored energy and starts pulling from fat, especially the fat stored around the organs. But here's the trap. Most people never let insulin fall. They keep it elevated without realizing it. Not just with obvious things like dessert, but with tiny things that seem innocent. A little snack, a little fruit, a little healthy yogurt, a little sweet drink, a little handful of nuts, a little just one bite. They don't feel like much, but hormonally they're loud. And each one whispers the same message to your body right before bed. Food is still coming, stay in storage mode. That message is devastating at night because nighttime is when your body has the highest potential to shift toward fat use and repair. Not because of magic, but because of timing. At night, insulin should be low and growth hormone should rise. Growth hormone is your overnight repair hormone, but it's also one of your strongest fat mobilizers. It helps pull fuel from stored fat, while your body rebuilds tissue and clears cellular waste. But growth hormone doesn't come marching in if insulin is still hanging around like a security guard at the door. So if you've been wondering why you can do everything right during the day and still wake up feeling stuck, you may not be failing at dieting, you may be failing at the handoff. The moment your body is supposed to switch from processing food to burning stored fat, that handoff happens after dinner, and it's controlled by what you do when you think the day is basically over. Now let's get specific, because vague advice is useless. The first lever you control is time, not in a complicated, obsessive way, but in a simple, biological way. Your insulin doesn't drop the second you swallow your last bite. It rises, peaks, then gradually falls. And if you go to bed while it's still high, you carry that high insulin state into your sleep, which means you spend the first half of the night in storage mode instead of repair mode. That's why finishing dinner at least 3 hours before sleep isn't a discipline hack. It's a hormonal setup. Think about what that really means. If you sleep at 10 p.m., the goal isn't to suffer. The goal is to let the insulin wave complete its cycle before your head hits the pillow. Because once insulin falls, your body can finally access stored fat for overnight energy. And this is where it gets exciting, because the body doesn't gently sip that energy like tea. When insulin is low and you're asleep, your body becomes ruthless about efficiency. It clears waste, it repairs, it stabilizes, it pulls fuel from where it's easiest and most accessible. And the easiest, most accessible fat is often liver fat and visceral fat, the deep fat that makes your waist feel stuck. But timing alone isn't enough if your dinner is built like a blood sugar bomb, because you can eat at 6 p.m. and still have insulin elevated at 10 p.m. if the meal you ate kept blood sugar high for hours. This is where most people sabotage themselves while thinking they're being normal. A dinner heavy in refined carbohydrates, sugary sauces, white rice, bread, pasta, dessert, even certain healthy smoothies can keep insulin elevated long into the night. And then you wonder why you wake up starving, because your blood sugar swings through the night and your body never got to stabilize. So the second lever is composition. The shape of your dinner, the order of your dinner, the way your dinner signals your hormones. When you build a dinner around protein, fiber, and healthy fat, your blood sugar rises more gently, insulin doesn't spike as high, and it falls sooner. That doesn't mean you need a miserable plate. It means you want a dinner that whispers to your metabolism instead of screaming at it. Protein matters here because it stabilizes appetite and supports repair overnight, but it also keeps you from hunting for snacks later. Healthy fats matter because they slow digestion in a controlled way and keep blood sugar smoother. Fiber matters because it reduces the glucose surge and feeds the gut in a way that supports metabolic stability. When you put those together, something subtle happens that most people miss. You don't just feel satisfied. You create a hormonal runway. Insulin rises, does its job, then steps aside. And once insulin steps aside, your metabolism changes gears. Now here's where the title becomes real, because the next move is what most people never do. They finish dinner, then they collapse. They sit, they scroll, they sink into the couch, and they assume rest is good. But the truth is, staying completely still after dinner is like leaving a puddle of gasoline on the floor and wondering why the smell lingers. Glucose lingers in the bloodstream longer when the body stays sedentary. And when glucose lingers, insulin stays elevated longer. And when insulin stays elevated longer, overnight fat burning starts later, or doesn't really happen the way you want it to. This is where one simple behavior changes everything, because your muscles have a secret weapon. When your muscles contract, even gently, they can pull glucose out of the blood without waiting for insulin to do all the work. That means you have a second pathway to lower blood sugar after dinner, a second drain in the sink. And once you open that drain, the whole system calms down faster. Insulin drops faster. The night shift begins earlier. But before I tell you exactly what to do, I want you to notice something, because this is the psychological trap that keeps people stuck. People hear movement after dinner and they imagine workouts. They imagine sweating. They imagine effort. Then they quit in their mind before they start. But the goal isn't intensity. The goal is a signal that says we're using this fuel now, not storing it for later. And you can send that signal with something so easy it almost feels insulting. Here's why it works. After dinner, your body has circulating glucose from the meal. Your pancreas is ready to respond with insulin. But your muscles, if you activate them, become a sponge. They soak up glucose to refill glycogen and support energy needs. And the more glucose your muscles absorb, the less glucose remains floating in your blood. The less glucose remains, the less insulin your body needs to release. The less insulin you have, the sooner fat burning can begin. That's the entire chain. Cause, effect, cause, effect, cause, effect. And that chain starts with a decision you make in the hour after dinner. Now think about how shocking this is. You're not burning belly fat because you walked off calories. You're burning belly fat because you lowered insulin at the exact time your body is designed to start its overnight repair process. That's a completely different mechanism than the treadmill myth most people have been sold. And once you understand that, you stop chasing punishment and start chasing permission. Now we need to talk about a second invisible saboteur that shows up right after dinner. And it's sneaky because it feels like self-care. It's the way you wind down. Because winding down can either lower cortisol and help your metabolism shift into repair, or it can quietly spike stress signals and keep you in a semi-alert state that blocks deep sleep. And deep sleep is where the real hormonal magic happens. If your sleep is shallow, fragmented, or delayed, you miss the strongest growth hormone pulse of the night. Most growth hormone is released early in sleep during the first deep cycles. That means bedtime isn't just about how many hours you sleep. It's about whether you arrive at sleep with the right chemistry. If your insulin is high, growth hormone is muted. If your mind is racing, cortisol is elevated. If your lights are bright and your screen is blasting blue light, melatonin is suppressed. And if melatonin is suppressed, your whole night shifts later, which means you miss the prime repair window. And you wake up with the exact feeling that keeps you stuck, tired, hungry, and craving quick energy. So you can see the system forming now. Dinner timing sets up insulin. Dinner composition determines how high insulin goes. Movement after dinner determines how fast insulin drops. And your wind-down ritual determines whether your sleep hormones actually show up to do their job. This is why belly fat doesn't shrink overnight for most people. Not because their body is stubborn, but because their evening routine is accidentally engineered to block the very state that burns fat. Now here's the twist that makes this even more powerful. Your body doesn't just burn fat at night. It decides how it will respond to food the next day based on what happened overnight. If you slept well and your insulin dropped, you wake up with better insulin sensitivity. That means the same breakfast that used to spike you might hit you differently. You'll feel more stable, less hungry, less reactive. But if you slept poorly and stayed in a high insulin state, you wake up insulin resistant, hungrier, and more craving prone. And then the day becomes a fight, not because you're weak, but because your biology is pushing you toward quick glucose. This is why fixing the after dinner window is such a cheat code. It doesn't just help you burn fat while you sleep, it makes the next day easier. And when the next day is easier, you stop needing motivation. You start getting momentum, and momentum over weeks is what changes the waistline. Now we're ready to get surgical, because in the next part, I'm going to give you the exact 1 hour after dinner protocol that flips your body from storage to burn mode without workouts, without supplements, and without hunger. But there's one more thing you need to know first, because if you do this next piece wrong, you can accidentally cancel the entire overnight fat-burning effect, even if your dinner is perfect and even if you move afterward. And it's the one habit almost everyone does in bed without thinking, because right there in bed, when you think the day is over and your body is finally resting, most people do the exact thing that tells their brain, stay awake, and tells their hormones, stay in storage. They grab the phone, they turn on the TV, they scroll. They answer one last message, they watch one last clip, and what feels harmless on the surface becomes a biochemical siren underneath it, because that bright light doesn't just keep your eyes open, it keeps your internal clock confused. The problem isn't that screens are evil. The problem is timing. Your body has an evening countdown, and melatonin is the signal that starts it. When melatonin rises, you don't just get sleepy. You become more insulin sensitive. Your nervous system shifts out of fight or flight. Your sleep gets deeper. And deep sleep is where growth hormone surges. Growth hormone is the repair crew we talked about, the one that shows up to burn fat and rebuild tissue. But bright light late at night suppresses melatonin. And when melatonin is delayed, everything else gets delayed too. You fall asleep later, you sleep lighter, you miss the strongest growth hormone pulse, and you wake up with a metabolism that feels like it never got to reset. That's why the 1 hour after dinner window is so powerful. It's not just a random time. It's the bridge between digestion and repair. It's the moment you either help your insulin fall and your sleep hormones rise, or you keep the whole system stuck in processing mode. So here's the protocol. And it's almost annoyingly simple, but that's why it works. About 1 hour after dinner, you do two things. You move and then you downshift. The movement doesn't need to be dramatic because the goal isn't to burn calories. The goal is to drain glucose. So you walk for 10 to 15 minutes at an easy pace, or you stand and move around your home, or you do gentle body weight movements that contract the legs. You don't need to sweat. You just need your muscles to open that second drain in the sink and pull sugar out of the bloodstream without needing insulin to do it all. And here's the fascinating part. When you do that, you don't just lower your blood sugar after dinner. You shorten the lifespan of insulin for the night. You help insulin peak and fall sooner. That means you enter your fat-burning state earlier, and because your body is about to sleep for 7 or 8 hours with no incoming food, that earlier shift compounds into a full night of better fuel use. That's how belly fat shrinks overnight, in the only way biology ever does it, quietly through hours of consistent hormonal conditions. But the walk is only half the move, because if you walk and then you spike your nervous system again, you lose the advantage. That's why the second step is a downshift ritual that tells your brain and body the day's done. Not with discipline, but with environment. Dim the lights, reduce stimulation. Let your mind stop getting new inputs. Because sleep isn't just rest, sleep is metabolic programming. Now let's address the most common sabotage that happens right here, because it's not always dessert. Sometimes it's what people call a healthy nightcap, a bowl of fruit, a spoon of honey in tea, a flavored yogurt, even a small late-night snack that feels like nothing. But your pancreas doesn't see nothing. It sees incoming fuel, and it responds. Insulin rises, and the moment insulin rises, your body stops pulling from stored fat. That means you can do the perfect dinner timing, the perfect post-meal walk, and then erase the whole metabolic shift with one small snack that feels innocent. This is why the cleanest rule is the easiest rule. After dinner, your calorie window is closed. If you need something, it's water or unsweetened herbal tea. Not because you're restricting yourself, but because you're protecting the most valuable fat burning and repair hours you have. You are literally defending your overnight metabolism from being interrupted. And if you want to make this even more powerful without adding complexity, you create a sleep environment that helps your body do the work for you. A cool room matters, not because comfort is the goal, but because cooler temperatures gently activate brown fat. Brown fat is the opposite of belly fat. Brown fat burns energy to generate heat, and when it's active, your body is subtly more metabolically alive even while you're asleep. So a slightly cooler room helps your body stay in burn mode longer. Then you aim for an earlier bedtime, not because earlier is morally better, but because your growth hormone pulses are front-loaded. The first half of the night is when your body does its deepest repair. If you push bedtime later, you don't just shorten sleep, you miss the best part of it. That's why some people sleep 7 hours and still feel wrecked, because they slept late. They got the hours, but they missed the prime window. Now, there's another sneaky trap that ruins the whole system even if you do everything else right. And it's alcohol. Alcohol doesn't just add calories. Alcohol forces your liver to stop everything and process it first. And while your liver is busy processing alcohol, fat metabolism is paused. That means overnight fat burning slows down, your sleep quality drops, your insulin sensitivity worsens, and you wake up inflamed. It's like hiring a night cleanup crew and then locking them out of the building. So if you drink, the least damaging pattern is with the meal, not after. Because post-dinner alcohol extends the processing window deep into the night. And the whole point of this protocol is to shorten processing, so repair can begin. Now let's bring it home with a simple sequence you can actually do tonight without planning your life around it. You finish dinner at least 3 hours before bed. You keep the dinner built around protein, fiber, and healthy fats, so insulin doesn't spike and linger. About an hour after dinner, you walk or lightly move for 10 to 15 minutes to drain glucose and help insulin fall sooner. Then you downshift, dim lights, reduce screens, and protect melatonin. No late snacks, no sweet drinks, no just one bite. You sleep in a cool, dark room, and you prioritize a bedtime that captures your early night deep sleep. And what changes when you do this isn't just your waistline. Your mornings change first. You wake up less hungry because your blood sugar stayed stable overnight. You wake up clearer because your brain actually got repair time. You wake up with calmer energy because cortisol doesn't have to drag you out of bed like a tow truck. And once you feel that shift, the cycle that used to feel impossible starts to flip. You don't crave as much late-night sugar because your hormones are steadier. You don't need as much caffeine because your sleep is deeper. You don't fight your appetite all day because your insulin sensitivity improves. That's the real win. Belly fat doesn't shrink because you punished yourself. It shrinks because you stopped blocking the exact state your body needs to burn it. So here's your challenge. And it's deliberately small, because small is what you can repeat. Tonight, pick one lever and pull it. Finish dinner 3 hours before bed, or do the 10-minute walk, or cut screens an hour before sleep, or skip the late snack. Just one, because one change is enough to start the chain reaction. And once you feel the difference tomorrow morning, you'll understand why this works so well. It almost feels unfair. If you want to take it further, commit to it for 7 nights. Not forever, just 7 nights. Because your body doesn't need perfect. It needs consistent signals. And when those signals repeat, your metabolism adapts, your hormones settle, and that deep belly fat finally stops feeling protected and starts feeling available. If this connected the dots for you, hit like and subscribe, because the next video is where we'll expose the one breakfast habit that quietly reverses everything you just fixed at night, and why most people do it thinking it's healthy.